Tonight on Reel to Reel, we'll remember a man of peace, Dr. Martin Luther King, and see how his dream continues today. And we'll see how sewing skills are helping inmates in a Mississippi prison survive prison life. Father Joseph Martin will explain the meaning of religion, and Mike Gallagher will review a controversial film depicting a modern-day Virgin Mary. Hello, I'm Father Dave McAllen. Welcome to Reel to Reel. Good evening and welcome back. Bella's on vacation this week and will return again in a few weeks. In a few days, on January 15th, we as Americans will be celebrating the birthday of a very special man who left us some 17 years ago. He was special because he had a dream of equality, peace, and brotherhood among all men. And such was this man's impact that his dream and cause continues today, carried on by those he left behind.
I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. Anybody here seen my old friend Martin? Can you tell me where he's gone? He freed a lot of people, but it seemed good they die young. I just look around, he's gone.
17 years have passed since Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was cut down by an assassin's bullet as he stood on the balcony of that Memphis hotel. And this picture closed a chapter in our country's life.
Let's glorify the Lord. Ooh, praise Him. Let's glorify the Lord.
The chapter may have ended, but the book will never be closed. Every year, that day in Memphis is remembered in ceremony by those who loved him, worked closely with him, and those to whom he is only a piece of history in school books.
The shots that rang out in Memphis ended my husband's border life and temporarily shattered the hopes of millions of people of goodwill. But we are here today to say that those shots did not kill his spirit, which is the spirit of love, brotherhood, and nonviolence operating in the human heart. And those shots could not kill his magnificent dream of a beloved community.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
A small part of Dr. King's beloved dream is being preserved and carried on at the Martin Luther King Center for Nonviolent Social Change in Atlanta. Reverend Calvin Morris, a professor at Howard's Divinity School in Washington, helped carve the plan for the center. He was its first executive director.
I think it is important that there is the center where you have memorabilia, where people can come from around the world to keep him in memory. I think that is a very concrete aspect of it. One of the things that was begun when I was there was an internship program which we started around the country with college students from various universities who come to the center, who learn about nonviolence, who study the life and work of Martin Luther King Jr., who have opportunities to dialogue with persons in the Atlanta area who worked with him, so that young people had some exposure to the philosophy of Dr. King.
Coretta Scott King is the founding president of the center and chief executive officer. She has made the Center for Nonviolent Social Change the focal point of a 9-block historic preservation project that includes Dr. King's birth home and church.
In Atlanta, there was the home, and we wanted to preserve that. So in '67, I spoke to the mayor about it, and he moved through the city council to pass an ordinance to sort of protect it, because urban renewal was destroying the properties around, and this was a neighborhood with houses that people lived in where Martin grew up, and the block where Ebenezer and the Son are now, houses were all torn down and they were moving into the next block, and that's when I spoke. Well, we were able to really stop that process, and so that the neighborhood is pretty much intact.
But aside from the physical preservation, Mrs. King is the inspiration that continues to drive the philosophy and dream of nonviolent social change.
It must be used as a way of life if we are to achieve the goals of our society in terms of lowering the level of violence and hopefully having a time when we have peace within and peace without, because Martin said there can be no peace without justice and no justice without peace. Peace and justice are indivisible, and very often we don't see the relationship between peace within our neighborhoods and peace, between nations. He showed us how they were all connected.
We are trying to remind the nation of the urgency of the moment. Now is the time.
Some individuals can be prejudiced against other individuals, and yet they are for peace in the world outside here. But what happens inside to your neighbor? It's inconsistent. Martin had a consistent philosophy, a consistent ideology. The thing about nonviolence, it forces you to be consistent, because you can't be truly nonviolent and have these contradictions in your own philosophy.
I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
And I think this is really what the dream is all about, trying to have a society and a nation and a world where every child can grow up and be respected as an individual who has potential, and that potential can be realized so that they themselves can be fulfilled, and then they can make their contributions to their own communities.
The Martin Luther King Center for Nonviolent Social Change preserves the philosophy and the legacy. In January, the nation preserves the memory when Dr. King's January 15th birthday is celebrated as a national holiday.
He gave us a method of struggle that can be used today, tomorrow, 2,000 years from now, forever, because it was based on truth and love, to promote justice and peace and equality, and to bring about a more democratic and just society.
Someday soon is gonna be one day anybody here.
When we think of the martyrs, we think of the saints and early Christians, people so strong in their faith that they would sooner die for their beliefs than be forced to compromise their convictions. Dr. Martin Luther King may never be declared a saint, but he will certainly go down in history as a modern-day martyr. Let's take a short break. Coming up, we have the story of survival in a Mississippi prison. Don't go away.
At the Donahue Funeral Home, we're always gratified to hear from the families we serve. Over the years, many bereaved families have told us how much they appreciated the warm, home-like atmosphere of the Donahue Funeral Home. To make such moments perhaps a little less difficult, the Donahue Funeral Home suggests that you discuss with us now, in the privacy of your home, prearrangement, and the financial advantages and peace of mind it brings. That's what living is all about.
For those committed to prisons, time is an abundant commodity. A sentence of several years can leave a person with nothing to do but watch TV. Without something to occupy their time, the prisons can become a breeding ground for crime among the inmates themselves. What is needed most in prisons is a system to build a sense of responsibility in the prisoners. And right now we have the story of how a Mississippi prison for women is doing just that.
You know I've been out here a long time. I know what I'm talking about. You hold your breath for change to come, and we gonna have to carry you out. How long? How much? How long?
I have talked to some women and asked, what is the worst thing about being here? And they say, to be idle, to have nothing to do. There's no rehabilitation here for women. A woman who comes in here, when she leaves here, she has not increased her options at all. She is set aside and warehoused here, and there's a great need for more educational programs, job training programs, anything to keep people busy while they're here.
This is Parchman, the state penitentiary in Mississippi. Of almost 6,000 inmates here, only 255 are women.
I think I felt called to be out here more on the women's issue than on the prison issue, because I saw a discrimination against women with, in programs and the like.
For 10 years, Sister Laverne Dolphin has been a chaplain and basic education teacher in the women's units at Parchman.
There was certainly a need for education, and that was the greatest need I saw when I came out here and started working full-time, and that's why I wanted to be a part of the basic education program. But the need to have an income right here, right now, rather than even before getting a GED down the road, the imminent, pressing need was to have some funds. Right now, they can only receive a box twice a year, and in that box, only clothes items may be sent to them, no personal hygiene items. They receive only soap at the penitentiary, so they have to get their own shampoo and any other personal hygiene items they need. And these are sold in the canteen, but if they don't have the money, that doesn't help.
Seeing the need for the women of Parchman to have an income, as well as some kind of rehabilitation program, Sister Laverne started a group called the Calico Quilters. Using fabric and sewing notions donated from church groups across Mississippi, inmates spend their time stitching handmade quilts. The money earned from the sale of a finished quilt goes directly to the inmate who made it. Inmate Lucille Sojourner has made over 100 quilts since she joined the group in 1980.
I really enjoy it. I really do. And plus, it helped me out with the things I need, which I don't have any, help from the outside. And it also gave me a chance to be able to send some money home to my children.
Shirley West has been an inmate at Parchman for over 3 years. She recently joined the quilting group and just finished her first quilt.
Oh, it helped me a lot because, like I said, I've been working on my case and everything, and when I get depressed or something, I sew a lot, and it helped me being depressed, Here last weekend I was so happy Sunday that I just finished all of it up in one day, because I got a letter from my judge, and they said they dropped 10 years off my 25, and I was just so happy, that I finished it to keep my mind occupied.
Marge Rader is one of 43 outside volunteers who come in to help Sister Laverne with the Calico Quilt Project.
Yes. Now, when you realize that these women come into a prison, or anybody that goes into a prison, that all decisions are taken away from them. They have a certain time to eat. It's regimental. Okay, these women are given material. Now, they can decide what color. It may not be a good decision, but that's not the point. They have made the decision of what color to put together, what pattern they're going to use. They have put something that they can see in their hands that I have done this. In a real subtle way, they are coming into other people's homes through this work that they have done, and it is an artwork.
The project relies totally on donations of fabric and sewing notions, which Marge Rader and other volunteers bring to the prison. Once a month, Marge makes the 3-hour trip from her home in Jackson to Parchman and returns with finished quilts ready to sell.
One of our big problems is selling the quilts, because after the women have spent, say, 6 weeks making a quilt, they expect to see some money, and they need it so desperately. So this is our biggest hang-up, is really to get the quilts sold, to get them out to enough people. Now, if we can show them to enough people, because our prices are very good. They start at about $55 and $85 or $90 for a very good quilt. Now, some of them are made by novice quilters, and they're mistakes, but that's personality.
Dolores Edwards McFadden is another calico quilter.
I think my most favorite one is the quilt that's called the double wedding ring, and that's basically because it's so complicated. I've did 2 of those, and once I conquered the first one, the second was easier to do, so it's kind of like a favorite one now.
As a result of the success of the Calico Quilters, Sister Laverne has also recruited volunteers who have organized a group of inmates who sell their own hand-crocheted items. Above all, now that the women have a source of income to meet their immediate needs, Sister Laverne has been able to encourage more of them to continue with their educations. With the help of volunteer tutors, many have completed GED programs, and some have even graduated from college.
I know that the answer is not to build more prisons, because we will simply fill them, but to provide ways for these women to go back to society with a skill. Some have gone out on work release as quilters, and that's their job, and they wouldn't be able to go home if they didn't have that skill. It is definitely helping them, and I know it's helping them cope while they're here, because it's something to do rather than just sit and wait for time to pass.
Coming up, we have Father Joseph Martin, who will answer the question, what is religion? And Mike Gallagher will take a look at a movie called Hail Mary. Don't go away.
Next spring, you can be a part of it. The 1986 Reel-to-Reel Tour of Europe. 2 weeks through Germany, Switzerland, Austria, Liechtenstein, and Italy. Hosted by Father Dave McGowan. Mark your calendars for next spring and watch Reel-to-Reel for more details, and be a part of it.
Many people find retirement isn't as much fun as they thought it would be. too much time on their hands, too little to do. The Retired Senior Volunteer Program has thousands of opportunities for retired executives, housewives, engineers, teachers, whatever your skills or schedule. RSVP has something to fit anyone's interests. You can do what you want, when you want to do it, and still enjoy your well-earned retirement.
What's your problem? Let's see. Let's figure this out.
You've learned a lot in your life. Share the experience of a lifetime.
Here's an interesting question for you. What is religion? You practice it, but can you define it? Do you know why you practice it? Well, here's Father Joseph Martin to answer these very questions.
Does the word religion scare you? It scares a lot of people. A lot of thoughts go through their minds when they hear that one single word, religion. What will it demand of me? What kind of commitments do I have to make? What do I have to give up? All of those things, I mean, they just jumble around in a human mind. I'd just like to talk to you very briefly about religion, what it is, just what it is. Now, basically, it's twofold. Subjectively, what is religion inside of a person? Objectively, what is a religion? Now, for this time, I'd just like to talk to you about subjective religion. What do you mean by a person who has religion, who is religious? Subjectively, within a human soul, religion is nothing more than the virtue of justice as applied to God. We use the word justice when it comes to rendering to Caesar, our fellow man, what belongs to Caesar. And when it comes to rendering to God what belongs to God, we call that religion. It's nothing more than paying what we owe to God. It's respecting the rights of God, like justice respects the rights of man. So a religious person is one who respects God's rights and tries to live accordingly. Render unto God the things that are God's, render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's. So a religious person is conscious of what he owes to God.
French film director Jean-Luc Godard has been causing some enormous controversy with his latest film. And the controversy comes not from the film community, but from the religious community. Here now is Mike Gallagher with his views on the movie Hail Mary.
Hello, I'm Mike Gallagher. The director of the highly controversial French film Hail Mary is Jean-Luc Godard. He's often been hailed as a genius, but remember, it's movie critics who have hailed him as a genius, and you know what movie critics are like. Now, maybe you don't know what movie critics are like, but I do, having been one for much, much too long. And I happen to agree wholeheartedly with Dwight MacDonald's assessment. Movie criticism, he said, is the perfect métier for the second-rate mind. Now take Godard's retelling of the incarnation story in Hail Mary. All the critics I've read have focused upon the nudity and foul language as the cause for Catholic outrage. I agree that these elements are indeed offensive to Christians, especially in a film that deals with the mystery that is so essential to Christian belief. Yet no critic seems to have noticed that aspect of Godard's film that is the most off base. I'm talking about a fundamental misinterpretation, one that seems to flow as much from a bias against women as from anything else. In the Gospel account, Gabriel tells Mary what is in prospect for her and then answers her question as to how this is to come about since she knows not man. And then there's a marvelous pause in this brief moment in which time and eternity intersect. Mary considers and then gives her answer. Let it be done to me according to thy word. This is her fiat. She accepts of her own free will, becoming in a sense, therefore, a co-redeemer with Jesus. Fallen human nature thus gets the opportunity through Mary to have a part in its own salvation. What we have of Godard, however, is what we have in the writings of some feminists who also miss the point. They fail to see that Mary has a choice, despite the emphasis put upon choice in the gospel. What they do then is reduce this awesome yet very human mystery to something like celestial rape. Now the funny thing is that Hail Mary is otherwise a pious meditation on the Word becoming flesh. This even though for many Christians, Godard's particular brand of piety would be practically indistinguishable from impiety. But let me say this. For a man who has filled his movies with tedious Marxist tracts, to take up a subject so central to Christianity and treat it according to his lights, however dim they might be, in a serious way is something I think that represents a significant progression. I can certainly understand and sympathize with those protesting Hail Mary, but if we protest against Hail Mary as the Pope has done, let's be consistent as the Pope has been. Let's also protest as he does repeatedly against the godlessness and impiety of commercial television and the general run of feature movies. Hail Mary has a bitter taste, sure, it shocks us, right? We notice it, but the poison that goes down smoothly is the poison that does the real damage, especially since we're much more likely to incorporate it into our daily diet. I'm Mike Gallagher for Arts Review.
The movie Hail Mary is scheduled to play in Philadelphia sometime in February, so expect to hear more about it in the coming weeks. And if you'd like a copy of Mike Gallagher's review, write to us here at Reel to Reel, 222 North 17th Street, room 907, Philadelphia, PA 19103. That's 222 North 17th Street, room 907, Philadelphia, PA 19103. Or call during business hours at area code 215-668-9842. That's area code 215-668-9842. Next week, we'll have the story of missionaries, both here in America and abroad, as we take a look at the Catholic Church Extension Society. Father Joseph Glass will be along with another moment in history. Rosemary Bruno will return with In the Know, and we'll take a look at a Maryland facility providing pregnant women with low-cost pregnancy care. Thanks for being with us. Good night, and remember, Jesus is Lord.
Travel arrangements for Reel to Reel by Atkinson and Mullen Travel of Media, PA. Phone area 215-565-7070.
What does it mean to praise the Lord with others? There are hundreds of people in the Delaware Valley who come together to do just that, perhaps even in your own parish. Don't say you are traditional and quiet, that this is not your cup of tea. Give it a real chance. It could change your whole outlook. To receive a prayer group list, just call area code 215-668-HOPE. Do it now.
From the river to the ocean and everywhere in between, the Diocese of Trenton lives in its parishes, people, homes, and schools. And the Monitor newspaper is your way to keep aware of the renewal of the diocese. Lively features, accurate news reports, and columnists with something to say. Read the Monitor to find out what's happening in your church, from around the world, throughout the diocese, in your parish, from the ocean to the river. To subscribe, call area code 609-586-7400.